Good morning. Happy Father's Day. My name is Anna Vey, and this will be my 5th trip with the youth and my 4th mission trip, and I'll be sharing my faith story. My faith story begins like many others. I was born and raised in the church. I was baptized here at All Saints, participated in Sunday school, and went through First Communion and Confirmation. I've been at All Saints my entire life. Even though I was often here, it was always a challenge for my parents to get me here. Almost every Sunday morning, I was woken up at what felt like the crack of dawn, pulled out of bed, and forced into a cute outfit. Although I didn't mind being in Sunday school, I did enjoy being with my friends, coloring, and reading the little Bible stories. I thought reading about Jesus was pretty cool. I knew about him, and I knew his stories, like how Christmas was the day he was born, or that Easter was the day he rose again. I was told that he loved me and was always there for me, but I was confused about how a guy from years ago could affect me today. It wasn't until middle school when I learned from my own experiences, not just from inside a book, of who God was and what he could really do. In 6th grade, I tore my ACL for the first time, and I was left hurt and confused. I was just playing soccer, something I loved doing, when all of a sudden my knee buckled and I fell to the ground. I've never felt this pain before. I had lots of injuries as kids, like sprained ankles, scraped knees, or even a cut in my head where I had to get stitches. But nothing compared to this. I didn't know if I was okay. I was hoping maybe I just twisted my knee, or maybe even sprained it. I didn't want to get too worried, so I tried making up excuses to convince myself into thinking it was fine. When I found out I needed surgery, I was terrified, and I broke down crying. I didn't think my injury would be that serious. I was only 11 years old. I didn't even know what an ACL even was. I felt so overwhelmed, and I didn't know what to do. Frankly, there was nothing I could really do. I had no choice but to get the surgery, so on October 7th, 2018, I had my knee surgery. I was on crutches for 7 weeks and out of sports for 8 months. I felt more scared than anything. I wasn't sure how to handle all of it. I was put into physical therapy, and the first few weeks were heartbreaking. I felt like I couldn't do anything. I could barely walk with my crutches or even move my leg with pain shooting through it. The thought of running again or even walking seemed too painful and almost impossible. I wasn't just struggling physically. I also started struggling mentally as well. Having to be forced out and watch your teammates do something you once loved was difficult. It was challenging to deal with the fact that I wouldn't be able to participate in the things I revolved my life around. Although I kept feeling the need to push, I'm sorry. It felt like one of my favorite aspects of life was taken away from me. In recovery, the process felt slow, almost as if I wasn't making any improvements at all. Although I kept feeling the need to push to get better. I knew it wasn't me telling myself that, but something behind me, telling me to be strong and keep going. I kept working and pushing myself through physical therapy, and I was eventually cleared to play soccer again next fall. I knew it was God who gave me the strength to be able to go back to sports, and I started to learn what having faith really meant. I began to put my trust in his hands, and I wasn't worried about my knee anymore. I thought God was watching over me, and I thought it would be fine with playing sports again, until it wasn't. I was running hurdles and track when I went down hurt. It was once again my knee. I was left speechless when I found out I tore my ACL for a second time. I was in complete disbelief. I couldn't believe the thought of having to go through yet another recovery. At first, I was frustrated with myself. I thought, how could I do this yet again? Not only was I frustrated with myself, but also God. I started questioning him, like, why would he make me go through this again? I was only 13. I didn't understand why I was forced to do this. All the work I put into my first recovery felt useless, and it felt all for nothing. But once again, I had no choice but to get the surgery. My surgery was then scheduled for June 25th, 2021, which was the Friday of the week I'd be on my first mission trip. I still not sure what I was thinking, because the thought of having to sit on a bus full of kids for hours to go to work in the hot sun, then sleep on an air mattress in a school for a whole week with a torn ACL sounded fun. I wasn't wanting to miss the mission trip for a surgery, though. I really don't know how anyone would find the thought of that fun, but I did anyway. So I went on that trip. I had to leave early Thursday night, for which my mom picked me up at 11 p.m. to drive the 3 hours home and sleep for 3 hours to make it to the hospital for the 6:30 a.m. surgery the next morning. And once again, I was back in that recovery room with thoughts flooding my brain, but this time I felt okay. One of my favorite things from the mission trip that I learned was the God sightings we shared. For those who aren't familiar with the term, a God sighting is where you're just able to see or feel God's presence. It could be anything, it doesn't matter how big or small, just any moment where you feel God's presence is a God sighting. So through my recovery, I wanted to notice God sightings that happened around me. Doing this, I was often able to feel God's presence, and it brought me comfort knowing that He was there. I was reminded that He had a plan for me. I just had to trust in Him and I would be okay. A verse that helped me as a good reminder is in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 through 6, which states, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understandings. In all ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight." With this, I stopped questioning His timing and I started trusting His plans. I knew that if I went through this once before, I was able to do it again. I was able to focus one day at a time and focus on the little things. Another verse that reminded me this was a verse from Matthew chapter 6, verse 34. "Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough troubles of its own." I knew this was God's plan and I should go by taking one day at a time. That first mission trip was so amazing. It showed me a glimpse of God right before my surgery that really helped. I went on the next trip after that and then the next one, and I started being at every high school youth event. I met the most amazing people here, and I'm forever grateful to have met them. They taught me not only to believe in God, but also myself. They reminded me that I'm not alone. With this group, I wouldn't be where I am today with my faith. I'm sad to say this is my last trip with them, but I'm so grateful for the experiences. I will continue to turn and lean on God during these difficult times. I trust in God's plan, and I can't wait to see what is next. I'm truly going to miss this youth group and these trips, but I'm excited to see how I will grow and learn about each God each and every day. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Will Gleckler, and this is my faith story to this point. I was raised here in these walls. My dad has gone to this church before this sanctuary was ever built, and we worshiped in the parish hall. And when I was a toddler, I remember coming here for nursery when the nursery was in the youth room. And then when I started school, I came here for preschool and learned under Susie Aiken, who I love and thank you. We as a family always made it an effort to come every Sunday morning and to make it the one day a week you get to dress up a little bit. I remember communion class and confirmation class and, of course, high school youth group. I was raised my whole life trying to wrap my head around God. And I say trying to wrap my head around because when you're young, you don't really truly understand everything. I think I believed in God because of how I was raised, but being so young, you never really fully get it. And as I've grown up, as I've matured, it has become harder for me to believe in God. It's hard to believe in something that's not tangible, that you can't touch. You can't hear His voice or see Him in person. And I'm sure there have been people who have had the experience to see Him and hear Him, but it's not like these are common occurrences. It's not like He comes down every week and goes, "How's it going?" I'm a runner, and I love running. And the thing I love it about most is the mental challenge. I strive to be somebody full of mental fortitude, able to make themselves do hard things for the benefit later. The fundamental idea of the mental fortitude that I strive for is based off of willpower. I don't care how I feel right now, I need to do this. Or I'm going to make myself do this, even though I don't want to, because I know that it is good for me. And this kind of thinking has led me to think like, if I can't do this myself, I'm not good enough. A dependence and hunger for doing it myself. Part of me wants to make it in life and to be able to say, yeah, I built all of this all on my own. And I think it would feel amazing to have accomplished so much and to have done it by myself and to know that I am strong. Another way to describe this would be self-righteousness. I believe it has become harder for me to believe in God because I'm so obsessed with accomplishing all of my goals by myself. God's not about that. There was a sermon that Pastor Bill McKee gave while he was here that I really latched onto about just this, how we are too reliant on ourselves and that in order to know God, we have to surrender to him. We can't do everything on our own, and God knows. At one youth group, I remember, we did a meditation exercise. We came into the sanctuary and closed our eyes and had a guided meditation. And after this, I wrote a poem that I would like to share with you today, titled, "A Clear Yet Opaque Choice." There I am, look, again, drifting in the darkness, my hair floating around my head. The sky remains gray, yet the darkness is suffocating. Before me, a fork in the path. To my left, a bright light glimmers over my body, shifting and turning like stained glass. It's wonderful, freeing, welcoming, and warm. And to the right, darkness. It goes on and on. Yet, there's a soft light at the end, blue, dim, yet still there. And despite the obvious choice, doubt clouds my mind and I step towards the darkness, even though that light at the end, it might just be a reflection of the light to my left. The scene I describe is what I saw with my eyes closed. To my left was one of the stained glass windows, the evening sun setting bright into it. And to the right was just the rest of the sanctuary, which just had a dim glow from the light around. In the poem, the light I describe is meant to represent God and his redeeming grace. The darkness to my right is life without God. It gets better at some point, but after a long path of pain. And in the end, I come to the realization that if I take the path to my right, that light at the end of the tunnel, that peace and contentment after a long, hard life, ends up still being from God. I have a choice. Either I can surrender to God and accept that I need him, just like all of us, or I can make the long, hard trek of doubt, only to end up being saved by the very same grace I could have chosen at the beginning instead. And it seems that part of me thinks I could still do it by myself. But that's not the end. This isn't the end of my story. I'm only 17, still in high school. I still have lots of time to take that first step into the light, and I feel as though I'm already starting to raise my foot. These mission trips we go on every year are such a wonderful experience. At each one, I have felt closer to God than I ever have, and I always leave with a stronger and more confident connection than before. Last year, we went to New Orleans on the youth gathering, which I found to have less of an impact on me. I didn't get the raw and visceral emotion that I get at these trips, which is why I'm so excited for this mission trip, because I feel as though I really need that boost of faith to get the wheels rolling. And recently, I've also picked up the Bible to understand the context of God and to understand the old stories. And though I may struggle with my faith, if God really is what I've heard, then I really do want to believe. Thank you.
Everyone. My name is Ava Miller, and I'm the daughter of Dan and Julie Miller and the proud sister of Abby Miller, and this is my faith story. Something we always do on mission trips is something called God sightings. At the end of each day, we all go around and share a moment or experience where we just felt the presence of Jesus. It could be a crew struggling to finish a job and another group coming to help. It could be a shy group member finally showing their personality, or maybe even a stubborn resident finding interest in the daily devotions. Sharing these moments was always one of my favorite things to do on the trips, and they were really easy for me to share, especially because I've been experiencing God sightings my whole life. One of the first times I knew God was real was in the summer of 2019 at the Ohio State Fair. Going to the Ohio State Fair was always a tradition of my family and our friends. That summer, after we had wandered around all of the attractions, we found ourselves by the concert venue with time to spare and country superstar Toby Keith headlining the show that evening. Everyone in the group grabbed a raffle ticket to win a meet and greet with Toby Keith and front row tickets. The winners would be announced a few hours after that. Now, as one 12-year-old does, every minute of those few hours I spent reciting in my head, God, if you're real, we'll win those tickets. I'll be so good and I'll never sin, and if you're really real, we'll win. And of course, God pulled through for little 12-year-old me. By the next hour, my dad and I were standing side by side with Toby Keith, our special passes stuck to our shirts like glue, and a signed guitar pick in my pocket that a security guard had given me. Now, I think I knew one or two Toby Keith songs, but in the end, that was one of the best memories I share with my dad, and one of the silly little ways God reminded me of his presence. Another major God sighting in my life was when I made a big switch my freshman year of high school. I had been playing baseball pretty much my whole life, yes, with boys, and I played for my middle school and club. But after being invited to join the softball team my freshman year, I was really struggling on what to do. I decided that maybe this invitation was God opening a door for me, and surely it was. Last summer, I joined my first travel softball team and found some of the best teammates I've ever played with. After having a ton of not-so-great coaching experiences, I was able to find coaches who supported and uplifted me and teammates who showed me how to love the game again. Now there's a God sighting that I've been experiencing since September of 2012. And that would be the miracle of my sister Abby. Oh gosh, thought I was gonna make it farther. Okay. Now, if you've never seen my face around the church, you've definitely seen or heard my sister's. Yes, she's the one dancing to the slow songs or yelling animal noises when she's definitely not supposed to. She's the one with the hot pink Nike high tops who always makes sure to give a standing ovation to the band during the contemporary service. Abby was born with a heart condition and has been in and out of the hospital my whole life. She's been through thick and thin, and she's the strongest person that I know. Abby is the person who had open heart surgery and was dancing in her hospital crib the very same day. She waves at strangers in public and gets happy when she sees someone walking their dog. She's my biggest supporter and is always there to cheer me on during my cross-country meets, yelling at me to go faster, or my softball games telling me I've got this when I'm up to bat. The truth is, God has used Abby in so many ways and has led me through so many God sightings that I can't even count. Through every late-night spontaneous hospital run to every amazing accomplishment nobody thought Abby would achieve, I know God was there for all of it. She's always there to give me a hug after a rough day, and she always reminded me to smile through the rough times and be brave during the scary ones. The biggest God sighting was the fact that Abby wasn't supposed to make it this far, but here she is with her big cheeks and curly hair as living proof of a good God. Without all of the challenges and battles that I've been through because of Abby, my walk with Jesus wouldn't be the same. Ooh, sorry. Now I stand before you today hoping my story has inspired many of you to find your God sightings. Because of my unique walk with Christ, I've been able to see God through all of the little things in my life. All of the close friends I've made because of this church, the long drive home with beautiful sunsets, the laughter shared in youth group, the prayer whispered during worship, and the strength I found in times I thought I had none. All of these have been reminders that God is present, working, and faithful. My journey hasn't been perfect, and there have been times when I questioned, doubted, or felt distant. But even then, God showed up, sometimes in ways I didn't recognize until later. And that's the beauty of God sightings. They're not always grand or loud, but they're always personal and real and show up at the right time. So my hope for you is this: don't just wait for the big moments to see God. Look for him in the ordinary, in the in-between, in the people he places in your life, and the peace he gives you when you least expect it. Because he's there, and once you start looking, you'll see that he's been there all along. Thank you.